It's time for your verse and worship song for today. So today we're jumping to the book of John. So if you have your Bibles handy, grab those. We're looking at John chapter 21. We're going to start at verse 1. It's pretty lengthy this morning. I think we're going to go all the way through 14. Let's see if we get that far. So here we go. After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias. And he showed himself in this way. Gathered there together were Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, the two other disciples. Simon Peter said to them, I am going fishing. They said to him, We will go with you. They went out and got in the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach. But the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, Children, you have no fish, have you? They answered him, No. He said to them, Cast your net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because there were so many fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, It is the Lord. When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on some clothes, for he was naked, and he jumped into the sea. But the other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, only about 100 yards off. When they had gone ashore, they saw a charcoal fire there, with fish on it, and bread. Jesus said to them, Bring some of the fish that you have just caught. So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore, full of large fish, 153 of them. And though there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, Come and have breakfast. None of the disciples dared to ask him, Who are you? Because they knew it was the Lord. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and did the same with the fish. This was now the third time that Jesus appeared to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. So we have here a story of the third time. This is the third time that Jesus appeared to the disciples after he was dead and crucified and raised from the dead. Right? The first time, the disciples were mourning essentially, and Jesus appeared in the house. The house was locked, and I always envisioned him like walking through the walls and showing up. I don't know if that was from a story that I saw whenever I was little or something, but envisioned him like walking through the walls and being like, "Hey, peace be with you. I'm here. I'm Jesus. Hey, how you doing?" So that was the first time he showed up, right? And he showed them the scars in his hands. Um, then we have in verse 24, the prior chapter of chapter 20, we have the famous story of doubting Thomas and say, I don't believe it's him unless I can put my finger in his wounds. So then what happens? Jesus shows up again. And it's about a week later. Jesus shows up and he's like, Hey, Thomas, here you go. Put your finger in my wounds just to prove that it's me. So then we get to this point where Jesus is coming and going. He's not with the disciples all the time like he was, during his lifely ministry, shall we say, before he died. Um, but he's coming and going. So this story, they're out in the boat, they're fishing. It sounds like they've spent all night out there. They've caught nothing. You got to think. I get bored. You've probably gotten bored with this video already, right? After 4 minutes and 15 seconds, my timer says. You've probably gotten bored already. Imagine having the patience to spend all night trying to fish and trying to catch something and winding up with nothing. I was never a huge fisher. Whenever I was younger, I did a little bit in Boy Scouts, but that was the part that always got me. I never had the patience to just kind of sit around and wait for something to happen. I'm a busybody. I got to be doing something. Got to be keeping busy. But so they sat in the boat all night, and weren't productive. And then all of a sudden, this voice from 100 yards away on the shore, Jesus says to them, "Cast your net on the other side." You'd have to think, okay, if you're a professional fisherman, like most of these guys were, you know, you know how to cast your net and where to cast your net and how to do that. They're probably thinking, okay, whatever, you know. So they cast it on the other side, um, and hauled in this huge haul, 153 large fish. Um, that's a very specific number. You know, this is another one of those contextual clues for me that just kind of makes the Bible alive. Why 153? It's a very specific number. If this was a story that was made up, when easily just say, oh, it was 150 fish, or 200 fish, or 175 fish, or whatever. We in our society break things up into quantities of 25. However they did that, I would think that 153 wouldn't be one of those kind of like even numbers that we kind of round to. That's oddly specific, so it makes it that much more real for me. So they haul in this 153 fish. um, I'm sure they're amazed. They could barely pull the net up to the boat. They finally realized, it doesn't say which disciple it was. It just says the one whom Jesus loved told Peter, "It is the Lord." And Peter, just was amazed. He's like, "Oh, it's the Lord! I gotta go!" Jumps up, puts on his clothes, swims to shore. I could just imagine other disciples going, there's Peter again. So they row the boat into shore, and Jesus is there. And what's Jesus doing? Jesus is being hospitable, right? He's showing great kindness to his guests. He's got a fire going. He's got the breakfast cooking. He's got the fish on the fire ready to go for him. He's cooking them breakfast on the shore. He has fish and he has bread. You have to think that the bread here, kind of gives us the reminder of whenever he fed the 5,000 on the beach, with 2 loaves of bread, symbolizing that. And the fish, being a symbol of the reach of the disciples, out into the world. Jesus calls them to be fishers of men, calls us to be fishers of men, right? To go out to make disciples of Christ, cast your net wide, pull those people in, right? Maybe it's 153. I don't know. That oddly specific number, like what they had in their nets. But so they haul these aboard, and they come along and they have breakfast with Jesus. Um, and so I think they celebrated. They celebrated that Jesus was there. Um, you know, they they got to be together. We don't get to be together right now. We have to be separate. We can commune with our friends here, or sorry, with our family, right? We can't really commune with our friends, giving social distancing rules and regulations. But that time will come again, where we can, feast on the beach, where we can, you know, be in a place where we can have fish and bread together, over a charcoal fire on the beach. That sounds like an amazing picture to me. Maybe I need a vacation, but mm. So as we go to our prayer time today, just kind of ponder the idea of how Jesus shows up in our lives, you know, and the things that we do that he tells us to do, and how it's productive. If we all took the time to listen to Jesus and to, metaphorically speaking, cast the net on the other side, which he's telling us to do, right? If we're kind of stuck in things and things don't seem to be going our way, if Jesus is telling you cast the net on the other side, do something, change something, right? Do something different, be productive. Maybe it's time that we listen. Maybe it's time that we try to cast the net on the other side. Um, we get stuck in our ways and our routines. We get stuck in the things that are comfortable to us. You got to think, um, these disciples were kind of plugged, or sorry, not plugged, but withdrawn from their normal lives to follow Jesus and to be the people that Jesus, called them to be. Um, they weren't, in their normal trades whenever they were following Jesus. They were out of their comfort zone, right? They turned themselves around and they went and did something different that Jesus called them to do. So keep that in mind as you're praying and listening to the song today. What is Jesus calling you to do that may be different than what you're doing now? And so you'll find the link for the song below in the description. So enjoy that and enjoy your day with the Lord.